not giving a fuck. This is chapter 6, which is entitled You're Wrong About Everything, and then in brackets, but so am I. We started reading this chapter. We're not done yet. Well, we just started reading actually. So there are some interesting ideas I wanted to read again this time, and we'll continue. So one thing I will read from the previous chapter is personal growth can actually be quite scientific. Our values are our hypothesis. So value is a hypothesis. Yeah? And he gives examples. This behavior is good and important. That's a hypothesis. Yeah? Or that other behavior is not. Another, or the continuation of the same hypothesis. Our actions are the experiments, and the resulting emotions and thought patterns are our data. Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting. Okay, apart from that, let's continue. Here, this one is very beautiful. Certainty is the enemy of growth. Nothing is for certain until it has already happened. And even then, it's still debatable. That's why accepting the inevitable imperfections of our values is necessary for any growth to take place. Instead of striving for certainty, we should be in constant search of doubt. Doubt about our own beliefs, doubt about our own feelings, doubt about what the future may hold for us unless we get out there and create it for ourselves. Instead of looking to be right all the time, we should be looking for how we're wrong all the time. Because we are. Being wrong opens us up to the possibility of change. Being wrong brings the opportunity for growth. It means not cutting your arm open to cure a cold, or splashing dog piss on your face to look young again. These were things that people did in medieval Europe and world, We discovered it previously. It means not thinking mediocre is a vegetable and not being afraid to care about things. Yeah. Because here's something that's weird but true. We don't actually know what a positive or negative experience is. Some of the most difficult and stressful moments of our lives also end up being the most formative and motivating. Thank you for the like. Others, I invite you to send me likes as well. We are reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Hello, you. Hi there. Some of the best and most gratifying experiences of our lives are also the most distracting and demotivating. Hi, Sigma Dandy. Free Diddy, someone says. Being freaky isn't a crime. Yeah, if you don't commit crimes, sure. Hi, Ashlyn. Yoga. Well, I love yoga. We might have a live around yoga also. But this is a reading session. Yeah, don't trust your conceptions of positive/negative experiences. All that we know for certain is what hurts in the moment and what doesn't, and that's not worth much. That's a very interesting concept. Actually, there is a famous Russian, well, she's from the previous generation, like she was very popular 10, 20 years ago, Natasha Korolyova. And I heard the following story about her. I don't know whether it's true, maybe it's true. They say she had a big dream, and her dream was to swim with dolphins. All her life she wanted that. One day she did that. She swam with the dolphins, and then she said she felt kind of empty because it was a dream for her. And now that the dream came true, she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to do about it, and she doesn't know what motivates her further in terms of some dreams and goals. Of course, I'm sure she had other dreams and stuff, but sometimes, and I remember someone, he actually, oh yeah, 5 likes. Thank you guys. That's very good. Excellent. I had a friend who was bisexual, and he liked this guy very much. He just wanted the other guy, he wasn't in love with the guy. And he really, really wanted that other guy for months. And I was friends with that other guy. And one day I organized a party. He even paid for me to rent an apartment to have a party. And when he was so close, and the other friend agreed basically, um, playing around with that other guy got disappointed. He was like, I have wanted this guy so much, and now he just agrees to my desire. I don't want him anymore. So, of course, it also involves some probably fears and maybe trauma and stuff. Um, but sometimes we are not really sure what we want, and when we get what we want, we don't always respond with happiness and joy and, oh yes, I did it. Sometimes, yeah, people get disappointed, and I'm telling you, this happened to that friend of mine who even paid money, yeah, to rent an apartment and stuff. Hi, ISUP, Dylan says. Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate that. Do you like buttered chicken? I don't know what that is. I'm a pescatarian. I eat eggs, fish, dairy products. I consume them as well, but I don't eat meat. Okay. Damn, imagine having the big forehead. Well, okay. Mikey, if you don't really care, just leave this channel. Because you care enough to give me comments. You gave me your time with 2 long, well, not very long, but still, yeah. With 2 comments, you took that much time helping my channel. Okay, well done. Now let's continue. And yes, about experiences, yeah, it can be different. Just as we look back in horror at the lives of people 500 years ago, I imagine people 500 years from now will laugh at us and our certainties today. They will laugh at how we let our money and our jobs define our lives. They will laugh at how we were afraid to show appreciation for those who matter to us most, yet heaped praise on public figures who didn't deserve anything. They will laugh at our rituals and superstitions, our worries and our wars. They will gawk at our cruelty. They will study our art and argue over our history. They will understand truths about us which none of us are yet aware. And they too will be wrong, just less wrong than we were. Kind of poetic. Yeah, kind of poetic. Next subheading is called Architects of Our Own Beliefs. Try this. Take a random person and put them in a room with some buttons to push. Then tell them that if they do something specific, some undefined something that they have to figure out, a light will flash on indicating that they have won a point. Then tell them to see how many points they can earn within a 30-minute period. When psychologists have done this, what happens is what you might expect. People sit down and start mashing buttons at random until eventually the light comes on to tell them they got a point. Logically, they then try repeating whatever they were doing to get more points. Except now the light's not coming on. So they start experimenting with more complicated sequences. Press this button 3 times, then this button once, then wait 5 seconds, and ding, another point. But eventually, that stops working. Perhaps it doesn't have to do with buttons at all, they think. Perhaps it has to do with how I'm sitting or what I'm touching. Maybe it has to do with my feet. Ding! Another point. Yeah, maybe it's my feet, and then I press another button. Ding! Generally, within 10 to 15 minutes, each person has figured out the specific sequence of behaviors required to net more points. It's usually something weird like standing on one foot or memorizing a long sequence of buttons pressed in a specific amount of time while facing a certain direction. Okay. But here's the funny part, the points really are random. There's no sequence, there's no pattern, just a light that keeps coming on with a ding, and then people doing cartwheels thinking that what they are doing is giving them points. Sadism aside, the point of the experiment is to show how quickly the human mind is capable of coming up with and believing in a bunch of bullshit that isn't real. And it turns out we're all really good at it. Every person leaves that room convinced that he or she nailed the experiment and won the game. They all believe that they discovered the perfect sequence of buttons that earned them their points. But the methods they come up with are as unique as the individuals themselves. One man came up with a long sequence of button pushing that made no sense to anyone but himself. One girl came to believe that she had to tap the ceiling a certain number of times to get points. When she left the room, she was exhausted from jumping up and down. Our brains are meaning machines. What we understand as meaning is generated by the associations our brain makes between two or more experiences. We press a button, then we see a light go on. We assume the button caused the light to go on. This, at its core, is the basis of meaning. Button, light. Light, button. We see a chair. We note that it's gray. Our brain then draws the association between the color, gray, and the object, chair, and forms meaning. The chair is gray. Okay? Our minds are constantly whirring, generating more and more associations to help us understand and control the environment around us. Everything about our experiences, both external and internal, generates new associations and connections within our minds. Everything from the words on this page to the grammatical concepts you use to decipher them to the dirty thoughts your mind wanders into when my writing becomes boring or repetitive. Each of these thoughts, impulses, and perceptions is composed of thousands upon thousands of neural connections, firing in conjunction, alighting your mind in a blaze of knowledge and understanding. But there are two problems. First, the brain is imperfect. We mistake things we see and hear. We forget things or misinterpret events quite easily. Second, once we create meaning for ourselves, our brains are designed to hold on to that meaning. We are biased toward the meaning our mind has made, and we don't want to let go of it. Even if we see evidence that contradicts the meaning we created, we often ignore it and keep on believing anyway. The comedian Emo Phillips once said, I used to think the human brain was the most wonderful organ in my body. Then I realized who was telling me this. The unfortunate fact is, unquote, yeah, then. The unfortunate fact is, most of what we come to know and believe is the product of the innate inaccuracies and biases present in our brains. Many or even most of our values are products of events that are not representative of the world at large or are the result of a totally misconceived past. The result of all this, most of our beliefs are wrong. Or to be more exact, all beliefs are wrong. Some are just less wrong than others. The human mind is a jumble of inaccuracy, and while this may make you uncomfortable, it's an incredibly important concept to accept, as we'll see. All right. So again, if I have viewers who didn't like the live, please do that. Send me a like, okay? Support me with likes, with comments, with super likes. You can buy paid subscription to my channel and you'll get access to a course entitled Introduction to Practical Philosophy on this YouTube channel, okay? Next, subheading. Be careful what you believe. Mm. Oh, it's okay. 3 and 4 pages. Let's dive into it. Yeah. In 1988, while in therapy, the journalist and feminist author Meredith Maran came to a startling realization. Her father had sexually abused her as a child. It was a shock to her, a repressed memory she had spent most of her adult life oblivious to. But at the age of 37, she confronted her father and also told her family what had happened. Wow. Meredith's news horrified her entire family. Her father immediately denied having done anything. Some family members sided with Meredith, others sided with her father. The family tree was split in two, and the pain that had defined Meredith's relationship with her father since long before her accusation now spread like a mold across its branches. It tore everyone apart. Then, in 1996, Meredith came to another startling realization. Her father actually hadn't sexually abused her. I know, oops. She, with the help of a well intentioned therapist, had actually invented the memory. Mm. Consumed by guilt, she spent the rest of her father's life attempting to reconcile with him and other family members through constant apologizing and explaining. But it was too late. Her father passed away, and her family would never be the same. Wow. It turned out Meredith wasn't alone. As she describes in her autobiography, My Lie, a true story of false memory. Throughout the 1980s, many women accused male family members of sexual abuse only to turn around and recant years later. Similarly, there was a whole swath of people who claimed during that same decade that there were satanic cults abusing children. Yet, despite police investigations in dozens of cities, police never found any evidence of the crazy practices described. Why were people suddenly inventing memories of horrible abuse in families and cults? And why was it all happening then in the 1980s? Ever played a telephone game as a kid? You know, you say something in one person's ear and it gets passed through like 10 people, and what the last person hears is completely unrelated to what you started with. That's basically how our memories work. We experience something, then we remember it slightly differently a few days later, as if it had been whispered and misheard. Then we tell somebody about it and have to fill in a couple of the plot holes with our own embellishments to make sure everything makes sense and we're not crazy. And then we come to believe those little filled in mental gaps, and so we tell those the next time too. Except they're not real, so we get them a little bit wrong. And we've drunk one night a year later when we tell the story, so we embellish it a little bit more. Okay, let's be honest, we completely make up about one third of it. But when we're sober the next week, we don't want to admit that we're a big fat liar. So we go along with the revised and newly expanded drunkard version of our story. And 5 years later, our absolutely swear to God, swear on my mother's grave, truer than true story is at most 50% true. Uh, We all do this. You do. I do. No matter how honest and well intentioned we are, we're in a perpetual state of misleading ourselves and others for no other reason than that our brain is designed to be efficient, not accurate. Wow. Not only does our memory suck to the point that eyewitness testimony isn't necessarily taken seriously in court cases, but our brain functions in a horribly biased way. How so? Well, our brain is always trying to make sense of our current situation based on what we already believe and have already experienced. Every new piece of information is measured against the values and conclusions we already have. As a result, our brain is always biased toward what we feel to be true in that moment. So, when we have a great relationship with our sister, we'll interpret most of our memories about her in a positive light. But when the relationship sours, we'll often come to see those exact same memories differently, reinventing them in such a way as to explain our present day anger toward her. That sweet gift she gave us last Christmas is now remembered as patronizing and condescending. The time she forgot to invite us to her lake house is now seen not as an innocent mistake but as horrible negligence. Meredith's fake abuse story makes her far more sense when we understand the values in which her beliefs arose. Okay, I'm going to keep this page with Meredith. Be careful what you believe. So interesting. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Makes, reminds me of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp and all those crazy feminist women who go nuts. On the one hand, on the right wing, we have crazy religious folks. On the other hand, on the political left, we have those feminist and queer. Uh, I don't want to say radicals. Radical isn't necessarily extremists. I'll use the extremists who sometimes get crazy. Once there was a woman, a feminist, who told me that when I say hey sis to my gay friend, I'm stealing femininity from women, which is crazy and insane. So, according to her, drag queens and biological males who just say hey girl to another male, they are thieves who are stealing the identities of women. That's insane. That's crazy. It's just like those right-wing Christians who say that by through gay marriage, the institute of marriage is destroyed. Blah blah blah. Both sides are so crazy. I like the political horseshoe theory or the model of a horseshoe. So instead of thinking of the far right and the far left as a line, you think of it as a horseshoe. And the more radical both sides get, the closer they get to each other with their values. Okay, next. Yeah, Meredith's fake abuse story makes far more sense when we understand the values in which her beliefs arose. First of all, hyperbole. Meredith had had a strained and difficult relationship with her father throughout most of her life. Second, Meredith had had a series of failed intimate relationships with men, including a failed marriage. Guys, again, I remind you to send me likes, okay? I'm fine purpley. How are you? So, already, in terms of her values, close relationships with men weren't doing so hot. Then, in the early 80s, Meredith became a radical feminist and began doing research into child abuse. She was confronted with horrific story after horrific story of abuse, and she dealt with incest survivors, usually little girls, for years on end. She also reported extensively on a number of inaccurate studies that came out around that time. Studies that it later turned out grossly overestimated the prevalence of child molestation. The most famous study reported that a third of adult women had been sexually molested as children, a number that has since been shown to be false. And on top of all of this, Meredith fell in love and began a relationship with another woman, an incest survivor. Meredith developed a codependent and toxic relationship with her partner, one in which Meredith continually tried to save the other woman from her traumatic past. Her partner also used her traumatic past as a weapon of guilt to earn Meredith's affection. More on this and boundaries in Chapter 8. Meanwhile, Meredith's relationship with her father deteriorated even further. He wasn't exactly thrilled that she was now in a lesbian relationship, and she was attending therapy at an almost compulsive rate. Her therapists, who had their own values and beliefs driving their behavior, regularly insisted that it couldn't simply be Meredith's highly stressful reporting job on her poor relationships that were making her so unhappy. It must be something else, something deeper. Around this time, a new form of treatment called repressed memory therapy was becoming hugely popular. This therapy involved the therapist putting a client into a trance like state where she was encouraged to root out and experience forgotten and re experience forgotten childhood memories. These memories were often benign, but the idea was that at least a few of them would be traumatic as well. So there you have poor Meredith, miserable and researching incest and child molestation every day, angry at her father, having endured an entire lifetime of failed relationships with men, and the only person who seems to understand her or love her is another woman who is a survivor of incest. Oh, and she's lying on a couch crying every other day with a therapist, demanding over and over that she remember something she can't remember. And voila, you have a perfect recipe for an invented memory of sexual abuse that never happened. Wow. Our mind's biggest priority when processing experiences is to interpret them in such a way that they will cohere with all of our previous experiences, feelings, and beliefs. But often we run into life situations where past and present don't cohere. On such occasions, what we're experiencing in the moment flies in the face of everything we've accepted as true and reasonable about our past. In an effort to achieve coherence, our mind will sometimes, in cases like that, invent false memories. By linking our present experiences with that imagined past, our mind allows us to maintain whatever meaning we already established. That's very interesting. I like yoga, and there is another interesting philosophy from India called Sankhya. They have very interesting mind theories, at least one mind theory, which says that mind, no, more than one. Patanjali has his own interesting thing in Yoga Sutras. Uh, so, um, for instance, if we take Patanjali with his Yoga Sutras, we have consciousness, we have mind, yeah, which is made of consciousness, yeah, just like ocean and sea are made of water, yeah. And then we have vrittis, like waves, waves of consciousness, yeah, or mental waves. um, Again, waves have the same essence, right? Waves are made of water. So, in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali speaks of five types of vrittis. What I want to say is, those are just waves. Yes, memory is a waveform, imagination is another waveform, And in Yoga Sutra, it's fascinating because they say deep sleep is yet another waveform. When consciousness says that there is nothing and consciousness believes itself, that's very interesting. But those are waves, and those are interconnected. All of them arise from the same source, yeah, consciousness, or the same. In case of ocean or sea, it's just water. So they are intertwined, and sometimes one wave, like memory, um, is also composed of imagination. You know, sometimes it's a mix of both. Um, yeah, I don't want to go deeper into that, but for those who are interested, I also teach Introduction to Yoga Sutras, and I have some other lectures, mostly in Armenian. That's the thing. I'll translate a lot into English. But, those theories are very interesting. We are reading, this chapter has a lot, or this subheading has a lot about psychology. Yeah, be careful what you believe. On page 123. So I decided to share something from the Yoga Sutras and Indian philosophy, because there too we have very, very interesting theories that help us understand or think of our mind and consciousness from a very different perspective than we have in Western psychology. Okay. As noted earlier, Meredith's story is not unique. In fact, in the 80s and early 90s, hundreds of innocent people were wrongly accused of sexual violence under similar circumstances. Many of them went to prison for it. Wow, that's crazy. Crazy, crazy. Actually, I went through a lot of persecution in my country. And one thing which the political opposition, the conservative Republicans and believers tried to do was to depict me as a pedophile. So they didn't say I kind of molested them, but this famous hateful thing, yes, which was used century after century against the Jews and against the LGBT people. Yeah, that those people are molesting our children. The Jews are drinking the blood of the Christian babies, and the gays are raping children or want to do that. So in 2019, actually, they took one photo which I asked my colleague to take when we were at a kindergarten in a borderline village in the Republic of Armenia. I was involved in a peace building project, and we were kind of, preaching peace. We were saying that Armenia and Azerbaijan shouldn't make a new war. It was year 2014, I think, yeah. And we went on we visited the local places, like they had a school, they had a kindergarten, they had a library. We went there, and the kids were sleeping so beautifully in such an innocent way. I just asked my colleague, and the director of the kindergarten was there, the other workers, and they are not shown. Yes, they are behind the camera, and me kneeling next to the beds of the kids, because it was so cute and heartwarming. And the political opposition used that photo after 5 years. I published that photo in 2014. In 2018, we had a revolution or something like that in Armenia. And in 2019, when the political opposition wanted to organize a coup d'etat and get more power, they were depicting the new government as LGBT friendly, dangerous, as pro-Western, and I fell victim of this obnoxious, very immoral strategy that they use. Well, it's pro-Kremlin thing, yeah. All the pro-Kremlin satellites use that same technology, and it's not only pro-Kremlin. in the Western world, and probably not only in the Western world, conservative, right wing Christians and believers, like to label people who are different from them as dangerous uh, for their children. So, this story with Meredith and a lot of people who were falsely accused of sexual violence reminded me my own story. I'm writing an autobiography, and all those stories with the photos and stuff, they used lots of media outlets. They owned different, media outlets, including a radio station. Can you imagine that? A radio station, yeah? Told its reviewers that I'm a pedophile because there is this photo with me in the kindergarten. They republished that photo. Yeah, so it's not only in psychology, it's also in politics. Yeah, and people falsely accuse, sometimes because they invent memories, and sometimes because they want some political gains. Okay, for people who were dissatisfied with their lives, these suggestive explanations combined with the sensationalizing media. There were veritable epidemics of sexual abuse and satanic violence going on, and you could be a victim too. Oh, voila. Yeah. Gave people's unconscious minds the incentive to fudge their memories a bit and explain their current suffering in a way that allowed them to be victims and avoid responsibility. Wow. Okay, I'm reading this again. I'll just omit the middle part to make it more explainable. Is it easier to grasp? For people who were dissatisfied with their lives, these suggestive explanations, combined with the sensationalizing media, gave people's unconscious minds the incentive to fudge their memories a bit and explain their current suffering in a way that allowed them to be victims and avoid responsibility. So when you're portraying yourself as the victim, oh, poor me, the blame and the responsibility is on that who caused you pain and trouble. Yeah. Armenians, for instance, we Armenians love talking about the Armenian genocide and blame Turkey. Well, that happened, but it is so, especially in the diaspora, in the United States, for instance, it is like a sharp knife uh, or I could say it's a hammer, and instead of building something with that hammer, we try to use that hammer to hit it, to hit the Turkish political elite with that same hammer. So when you veil yourself into this victim identity, you avoid responsibility. You say it's not me, I'm poor, I'm the victim, or maybe I'm not poor, I'm strong, blah blah, but I'm the victim. So in that case you have nothing to do. Yes, the other has to do everything you know Okay. Repressed memory therapy then acted as a means to pull these unconscious desires out and put them into a seemingly tangible form of a memory. This process, again, likes, please, guys, if you enjoy the live, send me likes, send me comments, okay? And super likes are also welcome. This process and the state of mind it resulted in became so common that a name was introduced for it: false memory syndrome. Wow. It changed the way courtrooms operate. Thousands of therapists were sued and lost their licenses. Wow. Repressed memory therapy fell out of practice and was replaced by more practical methods. Recent research has only reinforced the painful lesson of that era. Our beliefs are malleable, and our memories are horribly unreliable. There's a lot of conventional wisdom out there telling you to trust yourself, to go with your gut, and all sorts of other pleasant sounding cliches. But perhaps the answer is to trust yourself less. Hmm. After all, if our hearts and minds are so unreliable, maybe we should be questioning our own intentions and motivations more. If we're all wrong all the time, then isn't self skepticism and the rigorous challenging of our own beliefs and assumptions the only logical route to progress? This may sound scary and self destructive, but it's actually quite the opposite. It's not only the safer option, but it's liberating as well. Makes sense. I say makes sense. Again, I liked this subheading. The next one, oh, I like the name. The dangers of pure certainty. Okay, so next time we will read this subheading, the dangers of pure certainty. Yeah, yeah. See, even me, when I retell those stories in my mind, I was like, it's so nice that all those articles are out. Yeah, because I understand psychology. I like that field. I studied it on my own, and he's right. Sometimes you maybe experience that on your own. Yeah, like two people telling the story, and one person says it was like this, and then the other was no, it wasn't like that. I said this instead of that. Yeah, so yeah, memory and imagination are intertwined. They are made of the same essence, yeah, consciousness, and those waves are kind of hitting each other and a big turning into one thing together. So you should be, if you're a smart person, you should be aware of that, and facts speak louder. Yeah, when you have facts, when you have data, when you try to analyze with numbers, it's better. Even with my students, I teach English, I teach different subjects. What I do is numeralize as much as possible. Like, is your English good or no, now or not? We make tests, and based on the amount of correct answers, based on the percentage, we measure the progress of the student. I do that, that way, because some students are like, I know a lot, I'm super cool, and others are like, oh, I'm so miserable, I don't know anything. And both extremes are unreliable. Yeah, so feeling, the way you feel about your knowledge or your life or whatever isn't enough. You need data. You need to measure things. Values are very important in this context. Yeah, because you need a standard of measurement. For instance, if I want to measure the length of something, first I need to take the standard of measurement. Do I measure that length with centimeters and millimeters and meters, or do I measure it with feet and inches, for instance, or maybe something totally different? That's why values are important, and that's why self knowledge, self awareness is important, because that sets your standards, and your measurements depend on that. So, thanks for being with me. Last reminder, if you enjoy this, if you are with me up to this point, if you're watching through these videos, please like the live and support me with your likes, with your comments, and consider buying subscription on my channel, with which you will get access to a course entitled Introduction to Practical Philosophy, and you will support me as a creator. So subscribe, high five, thank you for your time, and see you next time. Bye bye.